Hello, everyone. My name is João Rodrigues, and on behalf of the Equids Power Network, I would like to welcome you all to this virtual event focused on the importance of working equids in mountain areas. The Equids Power Network is a coalition created in 2019 by the Donkey Sanctuary, the FECTU, and World Horse Welfare, with the aim to highlight the benefits of working equids by promoting their responsible use and care, recognizing them as a valid, affordable, clean, and renewable power source, as well as their value in human livelihoods through their contribution to financial, ecological, and social capital. When the Mountain Partnership launched the challenge to all its members to promote different events as a contribution to the celebrations held for the International Mountain Day that happened last Friday, the 11th of December, we thought that was the perfect opportunity. So today, we'll have with us a great panel of speakers from different parts of the world who, through a series of different case studies, will help us to understand the economic, ecologic, and social importance of working equids in mountain areas and for mountain communities. I will introduce each one of the speakers before they talk, but before that, I would like to greet our guests in the welcome session. From the Donkey Sanctuary, Faith Burton, hello Faith. From the FECTU, Cesc Aldaboa, hello Cesc. From World Horse Welfare, Liam McGuire, hello Liam. And from the Mountain Partnership, Sara Manueli. So if you agree, I will just use this order and give you the microphone. So Faith, to you.
Thank you, João. And I'd like to welcome you all on behalf of the Donkey Sanctuary to this virtual event hosted by the Mountain Partnership in collaboration with the Equids Power Network, which we are one of the members of. It's an absolute pleasure to participate in this joint event. As new members of the Mountain Partnership this year, we're delighted to be able to learn from other members and to advocate for the powerful role that Equids have in the social, cultural and economic aspects of mountain communities. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing from our speakers on these aspects from across the globe today. Donkeys, mules and horses provide a multitude of services to mountain communities and their peoples, and they're intrinsically linked to both their past and an important part of their futures. The use of donkeys and mules in particular in mountain areas continues to provide essential transportation, access to markets, income streams and resilience in times of difficulty. I'm sure you'll join me in looking forward to the presentations that we'll hear today. I'd like to thank the speakers on behalf of the Donkey Sanctuary for giving up their time to join us and to share their experience and aspects with us. On a final note, I'd just like to mention that where donkeys, mules and other equids are used by communities, that we believe it's important that we pay attention to both their physical welfare and their mental well-being. The welfare of these animals as they're being used is particularly important to make sure that they're able to benefit their owners and their communities. I'd now like to hand across to our partner from FECTU, Cesc, for his opening remarks.
Thanks, Faith. Cesc, up to you, please.
Thank you, Faith. On behalf of the FECTU, the European Federation of Animal Traction Associations, I would like to thank all our guest speakers and people who has joined on this online session as part of the celebration of the International Mountain Day. As an European federation that promotes animal traction, we are mainly focused in Europe, but we collaborate as well in projects beyond, and a good example is the Equids Power Network presented by João. As well, we are convinced that in Europe, animal traction has played, still plays, and will play a very important role in mountain areas, providing very flexible solutions to transport and agricultural needs. It has proved that it can compete with other modern technologies, being not only less aggressive with the environment, but also very efficient. A good example of this is that in some European countries, logging in natural parks or in sensitive areas, like forests near the river, are preferably done by animals, for its little impact on the surroundings. In some wine regions, where vineyards are cultivated in high slopes, the most effective way to grow them is using animal traction, because no other machinery can do the job. These are only some examples, and that's the reason why we thought it was very important to join the Mountain Partnership. Again, thank you a lot for your participation in this event.
Thank you, Cesc. Liam, up to you, please. You are on mute, Liam. There we go.
Right. rather than repeat all of what has been said by everybody else, that's the problem with going kind of third or even last in these issues. Can I say thank you to everybody who's organised this event? These events are very important, and especially say thank you to the people who've taken the time to join us, share their knowledge, and to show an interest in this subject. Equids in mountainous regions is one of the few places where there can be no argument that they take the lead. They are in most cases the best solution to the issues for the people who rely on Equids, and so this is a subject that is of particular interest to all of us. And I'm really looking forward to hearing the experiences of people in this and the views of everybody. And again, I would echo the points that in trying to make sure we can get the best out of these animals, these rather excellent animals, we mustn't forget that we have a duty of welfare, and that is important for us as welfare organisations, but also as human beings, to not just take advantage, and remember that we have a duty to look after these animals to which many of us owe so much. So again, thank you to everybody for organising, and thank you to everybody for taking an interest and joining this seminar. And now I'll hand over to Sarah.
Thanks, Liam. Sarah, up to you.
Thank you, dear colleagues. Thank you. Good afternoon and good evening to all of you. Thank you for inviting the Mountain Partnership to be part of this important event. I'm very happy to say a few words during this event about the importance of working Equids in mountain areas as a contribution to the celebrations held for International Mountain Day. For those who might not know, International Mountain Day was actually designated by the United Nations General Assembly in 2003, and it has been observed every day. And FAO is the actual UN mandated agency to lead observation around the world. So far, we've had news of about 70 IMD events around the world from Mountain Partnership members and others, and of course, this is one of them. It's a great day, and it's a great opportunity to raise awareness about the relevance of mountains to life. We know that mountains are under pressure from land use change and climate change, overexploitation, pollution, demographic and economic factors. We also know that mountains are home to a growing number of the world's hungriest people. We just released a new study, FAO study on Friday, on International Mountain Day, that shows that the number of mountain people vulnerable to food insecurity in developing countries has increased from 243 to almost 350 million between 2000 and 2017. This means that 1 in 2 rural mountain people in developing countries is at risk of hunger. Obviously, COVID-19 has further compounded the vulnerability of mountain people. In many areas, we know, especially in many low and middle income countries, that working animals play a critical role in supporting the livelihoods of hundreds of people. They also prove crucial in lessening labour burden on social groups by performing essential activities such as collecting and carrying water, which otherwise is allocated to women and children. As we enter into the decade of action, we only have 9 years to 2030, and the preparation for an inclusive, green and resilient recovery from the pandemic, mountains and mountain communities should be at the heart of our concerns and actions, and this is linked to working animals and Equids. The Mountain Partnership is a global multi-stakeholder membership. At the moment, we count 412 members, including governments, intergovernmental organizations, and major groups organizations. And the Mountain Partnership represents one of the most effective translations in the spirits of partnership envisaged by the 2030 Agenda. Everybody's called to mobilize its means to achieve the SDGs, and the Mountain Partnership implements this vision at the service of mountain people, nature and prosperity. The Donkey Sanctuary is one of our most recent members, and with whom we've already organized one event this year, the Climate Week, focusing on the role of working equids in mountains and climate change. However, we know that to build back better and greener in mountains, much more action is needed. More action is needed on pro-mountain policies, investments, on accurate data, scientific and indigenous knowledge, innovation, promotion of sustainable food systems, and synergies and partnerships with the private sector. I conclude to ensure that mountains and mountain people are not left behind. We have to step up efforts and do it through the Mountain Partnership. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you all for your welcome messages and for interventions here. Without further delay, we will start with the presentations. I just want to welcome all the participants. I can see that we have right now 30 participants with us. So just a couple of messages. As you can see, we have a chat and we have a Q&A options in our menu. So please, what we're going to do is please write the messages you have for each one of the speakers using the Q&A option. If you want to chat, to say hello, to say where you come from, please use the chat one. But for specific questions, we'll use the Q&A, and then in the roundtable at the end, we will read the questions from there. Once again, thank you all for your interventions. And we will start now with Tomás. So Tomás Figueiredo is graduated in agronomy with a PhD in agricultural engineer, and he's right now a professor in the Polytechnic Institute of Bragança in Portugal. Tomás is an expert in soil and water conservation, being a member of the CIMO, the Mountain Research Center. He's the author of scientific publications, and he conducts research on animal traction effects in soil physical properties, actually the topic that he will present today. He's a member of the Portuguese Soil Partnership and the National Commission for Combating Desertification. He's also a member of management bodies of RISCOS, Portuguese Association for Risk Prevention and Security, of CC Deserts, Competence Center for Combating Desertification, and he's a member of the Portuguese Association of Animal Traction. Tomás, welcome, thank you. Tomás will talk about, this is the first case study today, soil conservation in mountain areas, challenges and threats, the low impact of animal traction in agroforest management in mountains. Tomás, thank you so much. Up to you. You are on mute, Tomás.
Is that all right now?
Yep,
thank
perfect. Yep. Please don't forget to share your screen. And
I'm sharing the screen with my presentation.
There we are. Perfect. Thank you, Tomás.
Okay, thank you very much. My point is now to open up this. Very sorry. That's it. Thank you. Thank you very much for this excellent opportunity to talk about so challenging issue as this one. We are very proud to be contributing for this celebration, and mainly to our proud of our contribution to this special topic on equids in mountain areas. Our congratulations for the organizers, for a special word for João Rodrigues, a close friend and an enthusiastic element in the Portuguese Association for Animal Traction. Our presentation comes from the experience we have been performing in Portugal, especially in the northeast range, mountain range that stretches along the Western Peninsula, Iberian Peninsula region, where the environment is typically of mountain systems, and we performed, challenged by this situation and by the fact that the Portuguese Association for Animal Traction is a very active stakeholder. We in CIMO, in the Mountain Research Center, got enthusiastic about the opportunity to study the impact of animal traction in soil physical properties, our actual expertise field. I'm starting with a reference to the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, from which normally I'm interested in the one addressing land resources, life on land, but also on the climate action. But as said before by the introductory speakers, many of these goals are in our desk as part of our concerns, as part of our actions, whichever they are. In our practical life or in our work life, these sustainable goals are within our life goals. And they cover, in what concerns the issue we are treating now, they cover a lot of these 17 lines that the UN stepped forward. Obviously, here I'm much more concerned about the life in land goal, which is the 15. Another topic that I would like to call your attention to is that soil, the soil resource, is under threat around the world, and in Europe, under the thematic strategy for soil resource, some threats were identified and measured and monitored, and within which soil compaction, soil erosion, and desertification are the main rank up in the list. I would like also to draw your attention to the decline in soil organic matter and the consequences of that to soil biodiversity, because this is a very important issue in what concerns the soil resource. It is worthy to mention that the soil is the main reservoir, the main stock of carbon in terrestrial ecosystems and hosts a huge biodiversity, which is threatened by the upper lines threats, soil compaction and soil erosion. And that's why our focus is very much centered in these issues. When I'm talking about this, I'm focusing my attention to what we have done with APTRA and also with the University of Coruña from Spain, in what concerns the changes in soil properties as an effect of animal traction, also compared with the conventional traction, motorized tractions. In the last years, we worked in several parts of the northeast of Portugal and the southwest of Galicia in Spain, and I'm trying to summarize or call your attention for our experimental work dealing with animal traction effects on soil physical properties, mostly those addressing compaction and the soil water status. The first and the earlier experimental research we performed was in a village called Valde-Frades in northeast Portugal, where we compared basically the effects of operations performed with donkeys, with cows, with conventional motorized traction means. The work performed comprised data collection from field samples and electrical conductivity resistivity surveys in order to assess the changes of these operations and compare the different means to perform them. Very summarizing results, very summarized results are presented in the first graph in the left, which addresses the hydraulic conductivity of surface soil, meaning the permeability, the velocity of water entering the soil, which is a very important issue for keeping runoff low when severe or intense rainfalls occur. What we see is that before the operations, you have 100% samples that were fast or higher permeable. After the operations at left, at right, you see that there is a drop from 100 to 60% of the samples with that high permeability class. And that was much much lower in the case of the motorized operations when compared with the animal traction operations. We see that 33% against 67% in these two cases. At right, you see in the upper graph that when applying motorized operations, you get a desiccation curve, meaning the drop down of the soil moisture a long time. The desiccation rate is much different before and after the operation. While in the lower right-hand graph, you see that the desiccation rate is very close before and after the operations when performed with animal traction. In this case, we see that the soil depletes water as it was not affected by the operation, meaning that these graphs show actually this very low impact of animal traction operations in the soil water status after those operations were performed. We used also, as I said before, the electrical resistivity tomography to assess the changes operated in soils after animal traction and motorized traction passages. And in this case, what we see in these are the tomography outcomes at left, and the summarized results show that electrical resistivity at 8 centimeters depth is much reduced in the motorized traction, the tractor I'm pointing down, rather than as compared to the animal traction effects. So in summary, we were able to discriminate the two means of traction in favor of the animal traction applied, here in the case with the differences of performance between cows and donkeys and between implements also represented in the graph. Well, we tried also to make an experiment of animal traction effects on soil erosion and runoff generation. We used the rainfall simulator, a small plot treated with different treatments, which I'll not detail now, at Quinta de Santa Flor. These are very, very summarized results. You see at the left the conventional tillage, and you see at right the animal traction operation, upper. you see runoff, and upper you see soil loss, and down you see, and below you see the percentage of the rainfall that was converted in runoff. And you see that in both cases, the conventional motorized operation promotes the generation of higher soil loss and runoff as compared to the animal traction. Again, in this study, we were able to discriminate the effects of animal traction, in this case, using donkeys. Well, after this, we performed a couple more experimental field research, but in those cases, in spite of their complexity, logistic complexity, in these cases, the results were not so clear as previously presented. This is one in Bragança, in Quinta do Poulão, northeast Portugal, where we used also animal traction as compared to motorized traction. In this case, it was a horse, a ewe, and the results are presented here, and they are not so easily understandable, meaning that in the right-hand side, you see motorized traction in all graphs, and you see animal traction in all graphs at the left-hand side. And the differences between the several soil physical properties depicted here are under corn or fallow are not so easily discriminated. So this is a very interesting experiment, because it was a very heavily prepared and detailedly prepared exercise, which did not perform so good results in terms of discriminating animal traction from motorized traction effects on soil properties. And this is because the previous history of the soil had a very important role in the results. In the corn field, the maize field, you have a history of motorized traction operations that made a camouflage on the properties, the soil properties affected by animal traction during our experiment. So we could not see actually the differences. It is not the case of the fallow field, where it was impossible for the animals, as you see in the left-hand side of the graphs, it was impossible for the animals to perform the operations due to the consolidation of soil during the fallow period. This means that here in the bottom line of graphs, you see that animals have their limits to work. It is sometimes impossible to use animals under very long fallow conditions or long fallow periods, because soil consolidates and hardens. And the last experiment I'll try to talk to you about was not actually in Portugal, but in southwestern Galicia in Spain, in Mules, a very complex experiment under forest cover. And the idea was not to test operations with animal traction, but rather to test several implements in dragging or transporting logs just cut down in forest management operation. It was actually timber clipping. And all these, all the design, the experimental design that accounted for so long, many, so large number of soil samples and monitoring operations were not actually very much rewarding in terms of results. The electrical resistivity operations were performed, and these are the display. This is the display of the profiles, not very significantly or expressively showing that animal traction worked better than motorized traction. I'll finish with some remarks and challenges outlined here. Our past research lasts for 5 years and 4 experiments, and we have already a lot of data assembled in farmland and agroforestry operations. In future research, we keep in mind that our focus is to try to find out how animal traction reduces impacts on soils derived from operations, farmland or forest operations, and what do we foresee in terms of practical challenges is related mainly with the identification of opportunities to apply animal traction and the training of operators. Thank you very much, and happy mountain days. Not today, not in the 11th, but in the forthcoming days, mountain days next year. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Tomás. Thank you for your presentation and for being able to summarize such a complex. Some of these studies are quite complex in this short period of time. Actually, the last one we presented, it was during a donkey sanctuary project that we were actually tasking different harness systems. So we use that opportunity to work together, and it's always a fantastic opportunity to work with you. I will just leave the questions for the end. I will jump directly into our next speaker. So with us now, we'll have Eduardo Santorum from Mexico. Eduardo is graduated as a veterinary surgeon from the UNAM, followed by a master in animal science. And in 2014, he received a PhD in animal welfare at the University of Queensland, Australia. He also coordinated the emergency relief team and the companion animal project for the International Fund for Animal Welfare in Latin America office. He joined the Donkey Sanctuary in 2016 as Deputy Director from Mexico, and currently he is the interim Regional Director for the Americas and Animal Welfare Lecturer at UNAM's Vet School in Mexico City. Eduardo, thank you so much for joining us today. Eduardo will talk today, it's the case study number 2, Working Equids and the Production Chains in Rural Communities in the Central and South American mountain areas. Eduardo, thanks for joining us. Up to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Joao, and thank you for the opportunity to the Equid Power Network, to World Host Welfare, to share some of the cases that we have seen, or we have been obtaining information about the importance of working equids, basically in rural communities of, I would say, Latin America, but because that goes from Mexico to Chile to the Patagonia. So I would like to start. Let me just put the time, because you told me 30 minutes, right? Okay.
Nearly that.
Yeah, nearly that. So one of the first things that I would like to share with you is that one of the ways to define the region, the whole continent, is by talking about the American mountain chain. In this case, the American Cordillera. It is a big one, runs from North America to Central, the Caribbean, some of the islands of the Caribbean up to South America. And one of the examples of the American Cordillera is the Rockies and the Cascades in the United States, but also Mexico, we have the Sierra Madre, Oriental, Occidental, West and East, and the Andes. The Andes is one of the most important in South America. It is estimated, and they found a data that is home to nearly 200 million people, so it is an important amount of humans living there, but also, as it has been reported by different authors, that as in other ecosystems, it is affecting the climate change. The climate change is affecting, one of the examples is the snowpack, and hence the source of water, the ecosystem functions, and the socioeconomic activity. So it is also an important issue to consider, because it will affect the humans, the environment, and the animals as well. So one of the examples is the Andes. The Andes, as you could see, runs from different countries, actually 7 countries, starts in Venezuela, but then it goes to Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina. So it is a long mountain chain. The length approximately is about 7,000 kilometers. And one of the important issues of this mountain chain is that it is part of the ring of fire. So there's a lot of volcano and seismic activity in this region. Now, of course, in these areas, in these mountain areas, people use, as it has been said, people use working equids. One of the things that I will provide to you the information is the population that is the estimation of population global about the working equids, that is about 60 million horses, about 46 million donkeys, and 9.7 million mules. And in particular, I would like to raise or emphasize the participation of mules in mountain areas, and I will talk about this later, provide you some examples. In the Americas, in terms of donkey population, the estimation according to the FAO numbers are 6 million, about 6 million donkeys. And Mexico is one of the first ones, or who lists this in the Americas, followed by Brazil, Peru, Bolivia, Venezuela, and Haiti. And is number 4 Mexico globally according to these numbers. In relation to mules, and this is one of the most important areas in the world where mules are used. So the estimation is about almost 6 million mules in the world, sorry, in the Americas, where Mexico is least this with this amount, about 56% of the Americas, and it is the number 1 in the world most used. This is followed by Brazil, Peru, Argentina, Colombia in the Americas. So let me provide you some examples about the importance of mountain chains in the Americas. One of them is Mexico, of course. As you can see on your left, and the map of Mexico, almost the center of the entire country has the mountain chain, and on your right you have the top 5 states with the highest donkey and mule population. So in all of them you have mountain areas where people rely on them for their livelihoods. And one example is in the Gulf of Mexico, in the state of Veracruz, where people use the donkeys, but it could be also horses or mules, to carry, in this case, mango distribution for transport, and they rely on them to bring those products to the markets. The other example is the mezcal. The mezcal, for you that you haven't tried, the mezcal is tequila is a type of mezcal, no? So it's again used from a cactus, agave, and they use on your left, they use the mules to grind the cactus before it was boiled with rocks that are very hot, and then they grind this using, in this case, a mule. On the right, you will see some donkeys carrying what we call in Spanish piñas, or pineapples, which is the cactus without all the leaves. And they are very important in this case, the donkeys to carry, or the donkeys, horses, and mules to carry these cactus to then bring them to the factory. Another example in Mexico, it is in the state of Oaxaca, that is in the Pacific Ocean, where the mules are very, very important to carry, for example, in this case, honey. Oaxaca is one of the states that export honey to different parts of Europe and Asia. And in this case, you will see that for like many other cases in the mountain areas, that they are multi-purpose. No, they are transporting this guy, no, he's transporting humans, but also transporting honey, or in some other cases, other products. On your left, that's one of the things that we have seen in different parts of Mexico, but also in other parts of South America, that the donkeys, mules, and horses, they are very important. For example, in this case of Mexico and Central America, for plugin for maize production. So plugin is a key element, as Tomás was saying. There are some areas that they cannot be used any equipment, even though people they will have the opportunity to rent a tractor or to pay for that. There's no way to put to bring those type of machine into these areas. So plowing is a key element in the area as well. This is an example in Veracruz, also the Gulf of Mexico, where you have a small dairy, scale dairy farming farms system, and when they will obtain, they will obtain the milk, and they will transport this using the donkeys. They will transport the humans, so it's a multi-purpose function as well. They will carry wood, and they will, in this case, this is a thesis for a student in Mexico, they will transport this milk and the wood from a distance about almost 2 kilometers. And as you could see in the map, it is a mountain area, and it is not plain. Sorry, it is not plain. Sorry, it is. They need to go up to the hills and then down to where they need to provide the milk and the wood. No? Another example is Haiti. Haiti, for those of you that you have had a chance to be there, it is everywhere. If you go by airplane, you will see mountains everywhere in Haiti. And the photo on your right is one of the examples. In Haiti, the donkeys are key elements for one of the examples. And previously we were asked, or we were mentioned about the SDGs, access to markets, and also the opportunity for women to bring the products from the rural communities, from the mountains, up to, in this case, is Port-au-Prince, Princeport, well, the capital city, and they will bring those products to those markets, and they return, they will buy also, and they will return those products to their houses in the mountains. So those are also elements. They are very important. In this case, the donkeys for the livelihoods of those communities in Haiti. The other example is Cuba. In this case, Cuba, there is not like in Haiti, but you will see some areas, mainly at the southeast of Cuba, surrounded by important mountain chains. And one example, as we will see in different countries like Peru and Colombia, coffee production systems are people they're relying, for example, Mules, to bring the coffee to the markets and to carry any products, in this case of the coffee. So in Cuba, that's another example of the Caribbean. So now let's go to South America. In South America, you will see on your left in Peru, the mountain change, but in the middle, this map of the most important departments with the highest population of donkeys and mules. So this is not a coincidence that that you have the mountain chains and you have also the most important population of donkeys and mules. One estimation that in 2021, Peru will have a human population of 33 millions, and 32% of them will still live in mountain areas. So this is an important thing to consider as well. The humans and the livelihoods and the participation of, in this case, of working Equids. One of the examples, like in Cuba, and I will also speak about in Colombia, is the production of coffee. And as as you might already hear, one of the key production systems in the world is that this highland coffee production. And it's in a specific area of the world, and the altitude is about, well, the estimation is about 1,200 meters above from the sea. So this is another participation of working Equids in rural communities. But even though this is not about product change, we have seen, and we have been there with our friends of the Equitarian, but also with people from the donkey sanctuary, that the donkeys, mules, and horses, they are most important mules, but also donkeys and horses. They participate during tourism activities, mainly in the area of the Machu Picchu area, and people rely on them for this activity and for the livelihoods as well. The other example is Colombia. Colombia, they also produce coffee, but in particular, there's one product that This is very important for them, which is the panela or the sugarcane products. They obtain that for sugarcane products, and as well they rely on them, and they produce this sugarcane in mountain areas, and they need, in this case, the mules for these purposes. The other one is the coffee production, and coffee production, even though they will have some of the companies, this Juan Valdez, as you will see this logo, it was a logo, a brand that was elaborated by the Union of Coffee Producers in Colombia. And as you will see, the logo is this guy. Well, the real name was not Juan, but Juan Valdez with his mill. And even though they have some of these companies that will have the money to buy tractors, they still prefer to use the artisanal method, or they still prefer to use the working equids for the production and during the production chain of coffee. So as I resume, and this is one part of the document elaborated by Workers' Welfare in collaboration with Dunk Sanctuary. In terms of mountain regions and the animal traction, where we have, there's evidence that they contribute to reduce carbon emissions, impact to tree soils, and increase resilience. But also, it's important to talk about the sustainability energy, that they provide sustainable energy for agriculture, transportation, and forest management. I haven't not talked about the forest management, but the forests are also very important in the Americas and many regions and countries in this area of the world. So to conclude, working equids play an important role in human populations living in the mountains, which they rely on them for their livelihoods, contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals. And one of the photos that I like a lot is this comparison between a person, trying to transport food for their animals in comparison with a mule, a donkey, or a horse carrying also the same one. So we're also talking about the resilience and resistance aspects of a community, which they are working next to, are very important for the livelihoods of rural communities in the Americas. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Eduardo. Yes, indeed, Latin America, Central and South America is a mountain area by excellence. So working equids, they do play a very important role. Thanks for your presentation and for the different examples you were able to show here. I'll just remind the participants that they can use the Q&A. Some of the questions are already coming. We'll see these questions. If the speakers want to take a look to the Q&A, so they can read in advance the questions that will, if they are from them, it will help us in the debate. And I'm going to introduce the third speaker of today. With us, we have Hari Prasad Joshi. Hari is currently working as an executive director of Animal Nepal. Animal Nepal is a pioneer animal welfare organization in Nepal, established in 2009. Hari has been working as an executive director of the organization since January 2019. Before, Mr. Joshi served various international and domestic organizations. He has more than 18 years working experience with international organizations, funded projects including USAID, European Commission, DFID, AG Fund, private foundations, and government of Nepal. Apart from the animal welfare issue in Nepal, Mr. Joshi has profound knowledge on issue of agriculture, bonded labor, anti-trafficking, violence against women and children in mountain regions of Nepal. Hari, thanks for being with us today. The case study number 3, the importance of working mules in the tourism sector in Nepal and how they contribute to the livelihood of mountain communities. Joshi, up to you.
Yes, thank you, Joe. Can you please share my screen?
You want me to share your screen? Okay, I'll share your presentation. Just give me a second.
Yes.
I'll just bring it from here.
No, I'm doing it.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
Can you see my screen?
Yep, we can.
Yes. Thank you very much for giving me opportunity to present the importance of working mules in the tourism sector in Nepal and their contribution to their livelihood. I would like to thank you very much for the Donkey Sanctuary, the World Horse Welfare and Equids Power Network for organizing the event on the Mountain Day, because Nepal, most of the part of the Nepal is on the mountain. So this is very significant for us. Let me. And First, I would like to provide the information about Nepal mountains. So this below part, Nepal is south north. All the north part is the mountains. And I mean, if you compare the whole geographical regions, more than 80% of the geography of Nepal is on the mountains. We have high mountains regions covered by 50% and hills, which is more than 5,000 meter, are 60%. And we do have a plain, but the area of the plain is very, very low. 70% of the total geography is in the plain, but most of the geography of Nepal is falls into the hill regions and the mountain regions. The tourism is the one of the biggest business in Nepal, and each year more than 1 million tourists visit Nepal, and most of them come to climb the high mountains and to do the trekkings. And majority of the trekking routes in the mountain and hills area do not have any excess of the vehicles. So the people's or the tourism activities completely depend upon the mules and the donkey, because all the supplies to the mountain area is done by the either mules or the donkey. The communities that live in this area therefore are completely depend upon the either human porters or the mountain mules for the transportation of the essential services. The contribution of tourism sectors in Nepal GDP is more than 9%, and each year 240 billion revenue is generated by the tourism activities, and this tourism sector provide jobs to the more than 1 million peoples in the Nepal. It means that the many people's livelihood is dependent upon the tourism sector. The importance of the working mules in the mountain regions. The mules and the donkey has a very good important roles in the mountain areas, because Nepal is the underdeveloped countries and we do not have a road access to all mountain regions. So the mules are the only means of transportation of the essential materials and other foodings. There is no current data on number of mules and donkeys working in the high mountain area, because these areas are very remote and the access of many organizations is very limited because of that. And also the government and other organization, there is not so providing the importance on the mules and donkeys. Because of that, nobody has done the census of the mules and donkey on the mountain region. Because of that, we do not have an exact figure on the number of mules and donkeys in the mountain area, but the contributions of the mules and donkey in the mountain area, especially on the tourism sector, is very, very high. If the donkeys and mules do not supply the essential materials, the whole tourism sector in the mountain area do not be accelerated. So in terms of the tourism, the donkeys and mules play a very vital roles for the tourism sector. So it means that the high number of peoples are dependent on the works from the mules and donkeys in the tourism sector. And the majority of the tourists who came to the Nepal are coming either for mountaineering or for the trekkings. So in the trekking route, there is any road services. So mules and donkeys are only are the means of transportation for foodings, for essential services, even for the some of the peoples who are not able to work in the trekking. The mules are the main animals they used to come back from the high mountain area to the the vehicle stations. And I would like to share one case study. It has been recently came during the pandemics. because of the high mountains, I mean, the international tourisms are completely stopped, and the peoples in the mountain area are dependent upon the local tourists. But because of no materials, even the protective materials, the trekking and the tourism activities at the mountain area do not started. So later on, it was came in every newspaper that the government has used the donkeys to transport the masks, PPE, and other essential materials, so that these people, the tourism people at the mountain area, provide the informations to the whole countries that there is enough protective materials, and there is no, I mean, worry to come on the mountain area. So even still the international tourisms are not coming, but the domestic tourism in the mountain area, especially in the tourism area, just resumed because of the mules and the donkeys. So the government right now is also in the high mountain area, dependent to accelerate the business with the donkeys and mules. And this is from the Gorkha districts where we implemented the program with the donkey sanctuary. This is the touristic trekking route, and all these communities use donkeys and mules to transport the materials from the vehicle station to the higher off. Without, I mean, the donkeys and mules, these peoples or the people living in the mountain area, or those peoples who operate the tourism business, cannot get any supplies, even the waters also. So therefore, the mules in the donkey sanctuary, in the trekking or the tourism business in Nepal, if there is no donkeys and no mules, there is no business in the mountain areas. So the donkeys and mules play a vital roles, not only for the equine warning communities, but the peoples who operate the tourism business on their livelihood. Without the donkeys and mules and their works and their contributions, the equine warning community, not only the equine warning community, the people involved in the hotel business, the people involved in the trekking business, they are not able to bring any essential materials, even the foodings, to their hotels and their business. So the donkeys and mules play a vital roles to enhance or provide the livelihood of the mountain people operating the tourism business, especially the trekking business in the mountain areas. Joe has given me just 10 minutes, so thank you very much.
Thanks, Hari. Thanks for sharing the importance of the mules in mountain areas of Nepal. And we know that is a reality throughout the entire Asia. Wherever there is a mountain, we will find for sure a mule. Thanks for those who start asking the questions. We can see that we have 8 questions so far to Eduardo and Tomás. I believe the questions to Hari will start now. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the next speaker. With us we'll have now Boja Daguma from Ethiopia. Welcome, Boja. Boja brought up in a rural area along the chains of Shuwa plateaus of central Ethiopia, appreciating the rich biodiversity and sorry, can you still hear me? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'm sorry, Boja. Boja was graduated as a DVM from Addis Ababa University, College of Veterinary Medicine. He joined the Donkey Sanctuary Partnership Project with the same university. Then he worked as an equine clinician, project leader and national coordinator. Later, Boja pursued his postgraduate study at the University of London in veterinary epidemiology, When he returned to Ethiopia, he was appointed as a country representative of Donkey Sanctuary Ethiopia, and he was leading a mission in country to date. Boja have recently been recruited to the African Animal Welfare Network, leading teams across the continent, representing East Africa and the Horn. Boja also train livestock owners, animal health professionals, college instructors and students, and currently Boja is working with the government of Ethiopia and diverse stakeholders to develop equinational strategy to help include this in the national development programs. Boja, thank you so much. Boja will talk about this, our case study number 4. He will talk about the contribution of working equids to sustaining the livelihoods of Ethiopian highlanders. Boja, up to you. You are on mute, Boja. There we go, perfect.
Thank you, Eduardo. I will be sharing my presentation. I think, Windows. Where is it? Where is it?
On the green arrow, Boja, it says share screen.
Yes, I did that.
Yep.
And
there we go. We can see your screen now, Boja.
You can see. Can you see my screen?
Yep, that's an email there. So if you just delete the email and you open the PowerPoint.
Okay.
Otherwise, I can share the screen for you.
Is that? Can you see now?
Not the presentation, Boja. Maybe you are working with 2 screens, right?
Okay. Let me do it again.
I can share for you if you want.
Okay. I'm happy if I can share this one. Oh, I can share you now. I got now.
Let me see.
Okay.
There we go, Boja. Yep.
Okay. Right.
Yep. Just put slide number 1. Perfect, Boja.
Yes. Okay. Can you see now?
Yes, it's working, Boja. Thanks.
Thank you, Eduardo and Valentina, for coordinating and also inviting me to talk at the 2020 International Mountain Day. I'm also happy to take this opportunity to appreciate the Equine Power Network, a concerted effort of equine charities to bring a sustainable impact and for extending partnership for other stakeholders such as this. Partnership is a model in the 21st century. So my talk will be on the contribution of working equids to sustaining the livelihoods of Ethiopian highlanders. So the talk will be, I will be talking about some elements of Ethiopia, proving that it is a highland country, and the contribution of working equids to sustain the livelihoods of the highlanders, with the case of those highlanders in the Afro-Alpine habitats. And I probably suggest at the end the potential collaboration of equine charities with other actors to conserve biodiversity of the Afro-Alpine ecosystem. And I may conclude and also suggest a recommendation. So Ethiopia is a hugely Afro-Alpine habitat. Research shows that Ethiopia takes the large extent of the Afro-Alpine habitats of Africa. This is a habitat with over 3,200 meters above sea level. The second map shows the 5 agroecological zones of Ethiopia. The red shows moisture reliable highland, and the light blue shows drought-prone highland. This is where both the people and equids are densely populated. The other element that shows that Ethiopia is a highland country is Ethiopia is a source of hundreds of springs feeding water to neighboring countries. In the north, as far as Egypt, by the Blue Nile, and there are also other streams of river that are from the southeast highlands of Ethiopia. So especially the Wabi Shebele River, which goes up to Somalia. So it is a hugely highland country. So again, I'll show you the distribution of people and Equid along across Ethiopia. Most of the in the first picture, if you see, the human population are distributed in the on both sides of the Great African Rift Valley. The red shows, for example, the very red shows that there are about 2,500 people residing per 100 square kilometer land area. The second picture also shows the equine distribution, which also take an equivalent geographical area on both the escarpments of the Rift Valley. So both share the same area, which means that equids are essential for sustaining the livelihoods of most of the Ethiopians. In fact, both in the highland, in the lowland areas, but mainly in the highland areas. If you see the trend, both human and equid population, they are all on the rise. Ethiopia is home to 12 million equine population. The trend is increasing, and also if you see the second graph, it shows Ethiopia overtaking Egypt in its human population. Now we have up to 116 million people. So both are increasing. So my talk will be concentrating on, my talk will be concentrating on the case of the Afro-Alpine regions of Ethiopia. So the CIMO mountains, in the highlands of in the northern highlands. Both the Ras Station area and the Chuko area, and then in the southeastern part of the Bali Mountains. The map, I use the map of the National Park of Ethiopia. How equids contribute to livelihoods? The major economic attribute of equids in the Afro-Alpine region is ecotourism. In this region, there are about over 100 horse owners association who make living via the ecotourism. The question is how tourists access these animals. So this is a Ras Dashen mountain, so car is impossible because of the road infrastructure. Helicopter may be costly. So the viable, affordable, eco-friendly means of transport is using equids. So if you see equids in the ecotourism value chain, tourists may come with plane, arrive with plane, and they use car, and then they must use equids and then trekking to reach to the site where they see this wildlife, endemic wildlife. One can appreciate, and this, as you can see, the linkages between wildlife conservation, ecotourism, and equids role, equine welfare. For ecotourism to flourish, wildlife needs to be conserved. Natural vegetation needs to be maintained, which involves limiting livelihood pressure, including clearing bushes for housing and agricultural purposes. Other livelihoods aspects of the use of equids as they contribute to the livelihoods of the highlanders is public and bush transport and communication, market access and grinding mills, access to public health care, water access, source of cash, selling offspring as they produce horses, income generating through sale of firewood, charcoal, horsefly whisks, horticulture products. Yes, equids are also used for cultivating crops, especially in Awi zone, in Banja and Jawi districts. You may all appreciate here the poorly fitted implements that are not meant for plowing, which limits also the efficiency and inflicting wounds. this is a case of Awizon, just to see how what the proportion of these animals involved in cultivating crops. Almost half of them are involved in plowing and cultivating crops, while during the rest of the year, this is during the farming season, but during the rest of the year, they are involved in other activities. The other aspect is socio-cultural values. These animals have the community's social capital is based on the ownership of horses. Horses have central values in the social and cultural values of the Ethiopian highlanders in the areas I'm mentioning. They have values in religious rituals, traditional bidding, farewell to fallen heroes, mourning, escorting for officials. They are linked highly to the day-to-day lives of the communities in the highland. Constraints of equine welfare, lack of equine owners awareness, associations awareness, traditional horse rearing, lack of skill knowledge, access to equality breeds, lack of land, inbreeding practices, lack of access to nutrition, parasites, poor body condition score, poor harnessing practice, backstory is common because of the terrestrial nature of the area, lack of access to equine healthcare. As I said, what I suggest as a potential collaboration of the Equine Power Network is to work with livelihood organizations like Africa Rising. Just I picked one of the development partner. This is a development organization dedicated to supporting livelihoods of the highlanders in Ethiopia. And also EWCA stands for Ethiopian Wildlife Conservation Authority. And the other one is Ethiopian Tourism Commission. To improve Equids welfare, conserve the ecosystem, and maintain the industry. In conclusion, Ethiopia is a highland country, which means there are many people who live in the highland. What I mentioned was in the extreme highlands, but most Ethiopians, over half of Ethiopians, live in the highland area. Equids have essential roles in sustaining livelihoods of these highlanders. Equids also adds value to the ecotourism industry. It could be challenging without Equids power. However, the role of Equids in the ecotourism industry is not developed, and wildlife survival is challenged by various factors. Holistic development of such ecotourism may involve a genuine collaboration of actors, including wildlife conservation units, development partners, national tourism, and Equids welfare charities, as well as local community associations. With this, thank you. If you are listening to me. Hello?
We can't hear you, Joel.
I'm sorry. There's a magic red button that I press without wanting. I was just saying that this case study, together with the other three, actually took us a little bit around the world, and we were able to see, as we said at the beginning, there is clearly a ecological, economical, and social impact, and impact on a positive way. When talking about working equids in generally, and of course working equids in mountain areas. So if you agree, I don't know if you have the chance to see some of the questions. What I'll do, if you agree, I'm just going to open the question and answers, and I'll start reading the questions, and I'm just going around the table, probably following the same order we had in the presentations, mainly because the questions came while you finish your presentation. So from Stacy Tinkler from the US to Tomás. Hi, thank you for your presentation, Tomás. Two questions here. How long did it take for the animals to plow the same plots as when compared with the motorized? Stacey's asking, I'm trying to understand how they compare, how long it takes to do the same amount of work. And the second question is, in the cases of very compact soil that the animals can't till well, do you have any recommendations for how to prepare the soil so that animals can then be used to till? Two questions for Tomás here.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the participation. I would say that the first question is a very interesting question because obviously one of the gains of civilization, I would say industrial civilization, was to save time. And of course, the tractors run and move at a much faster velocity than the animals, and they perform much faster the operations. So undoubtedly, I would say that at least it's 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, between 1 to 5 and 1 to 10, the ratio of the velocities of tractors versus animals in plowing, in the plowing operations. That is the main advantage of animal traction. It's much slower in this, and in that sense, the implement's impact in soils are, at least as far as we know, much lower because you don't have a disaggregation, you don't have a pulverization of the soil as much as you find when the implements are pulled by tractors. The second point is also a very interesting point because we have, in those conditions where soil compaction hardened too much the soil, it is almost impossible to count on animals, and you have two options. One is to rely again on animals, doubling or tripling if you have them, the pack of animals that is able to pull the implement. It's a matter of power. If you have one animal, we have 1 unit horsepower, and if you don't, if you have 2, 3, 4, you have 4 horsepowers. Horsepower. That's the idea of horsepower. So if you're able to mount a certain number of animals, you can do it. Otherwise, you have to choose a much more powerful mean, which is the motorized one. Well, this is to be done every time. No, this is to be done as you take an antibiotic, as far as you need it. If you have a compacted soil, the animals cannot go in, you use a tractor. If you don't, keep it that way.
Thank you, Tomás. Thank you. Stacey is a veterinarian. I'm not sure if she agrees with you about the antibiotic, but that's another conversation. So, question for Eduardo, and I'm going to merge here two questions, Eduardo. There's one from Emily Hadi and another one from Sonia. So basically, Emily is saying, are there similarities in the types of well problems prevalent in mountain areas, or do you think that the production industry plays a larger part in affecting welfare than the environment? And then Sonia is saying, what is the level of animal welfare you see more often in these communities, or even the welfare awareness? If you'll be able to merge these two, I'll appreciate that.
Okay. Yes, Joe, and thank you for the questions. Well, we have seen some similarities is, for example, in relation to nutrition and harness. That's just as two examples that we have seen in this area in comparison with plainland or peri-urban or urban areas where the harness systems are inadequate or the nutrition is not good. But in terms of one of the questions about the industry, one of the most of the examples I provided was in relation to low-scale production systems. It's not really an industry perhaps with the exception of the coffee production systems in Colombia, or the tourism that you know, Joao, in Peru, in the area of Machu Picchu, where there's a big industry that it could be affected. And that's one of the areas that we will need to do a proper assessment during the entire year. If there's some sort of, because of the industry, because of the more use perhaps during the production of obtaining the coffee and the transportation of coffee, or sugarcane products, or the mezcal production, during those high seasons, if there's more, the welfare is being reduced because of more activity, more time of the animals working in those areas. But what we have seen, there are some similarities, but one of the key issues that we have already review, like the case of Peru, the Stacy and you all know very well, is the lack of access to service providers or veterinary attention, medical attention. That's I think one of the greatest challenge of the mountain areas that those communities that they need to face when there's any welfare issue.
Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you. Yes, this is true. No, the lack of service providing that we see in mountains also affect the animals, especially the lack of veterinarians being in the area. That's for sure. I know that Harry already answered these questions in a written answer, but I'd like to ask you anyway, so we can have the chance to hear Harry one more time. There is a question from Stacy saying, thank you for an interesting presentation. How are the equid population being impacted by COVID? Is the government helping to provide support to feed and maintain these animals while international tourism is stopped, or are they being sold or slaughtered with more frequency? Thanks.
I mean, thank you for the questions. Yes. The equids in the mountain area is highly affected because of the pandemic, because the business is not operating, and the livelihood of the equid community is, I mean, really in a bad positions. In terms of the government responses is very, very low, because we are still in conflict because of the political instabilities. And recently, the Nepal is converted into the federal systems, and there is a 3 level of government: federal, province, and the local government. There is no such coordination among the 3 government, and the role and responsibility of all 3 government has not still be cleared. And also because of the Nepali peoples, the Nepal government, the livestock is not priorities. The equids are not even the contributions of the equids in the mountain regions and other industrial factories like a bricklines is very high, but the importance from the stakeholder to the equids is very, very low. And these 3 equids, I mean the donkeys, mules, and horse. The donkeys have a very bad status in Nepal. Because of that, the peoples, the government, the other stakeholder are not giving any priorities. The communities and the donkeys and mules are really in a very bad positions currently. But some organizations I mean, we have received some emergency funding from Donkey Sanctuary, the World Horse Welfare, and we are able to provide some relief materials to the warning communities as well as the animals. But from the government responses is very, very low. I can say that there is no any government responses for the equids, especially equids in the mountain regions.
Thank you, Ari.
In October, we have sent our veterinarian to assess the welfare of the equids, and we found very, very bad in the mountain area because of there is no incomes. The equine warning committee, they just left their equine on the grazing area to do the independent grazings, and there are no equine handlers. So
okay.
The impact happened in the equines and equine warning communities in the mountain area due to the pandemic.
Okay, so I'll just use this opportunity as the last question that came is related with this. So if you don't mind, I'll just keep with Harry
Sure.
and Eduardo. The question says, for Harry and Eduardo, what would help to ensure working equids are given priority by government extension staff and state vets?
Sorry, can you just repeat because sound
Yep.
is...
What would help to ensure working equids are given priority by government extension staff and state vets? For you and Eduardo.
I mean, actually the technicians and veterans are very limited in Nepal. Those who have a official certificate, they remains in the urban areas, and their priority is more other livestock, not for the equines. Because of that, if you see in the Nepal, the people working, the veteran or vet technician working for the equines are very, very low. And as I told you that the government priority is not the equines. Government priority is more other livestocks. And also I have told you that the equines, especially donkey, has a very, very low status. So the peoples or the veteran also need a lot of awareness on the importance of the donkeys and mules in the Nepal. Otherwise, they remains neglected, and because of that, they will not get the services from the state or the NGOs. I can say that.
Thanks,
Well,
Harry. Eduardo?
that's the golden question, no, for us. There are different routes or different options that we have discussed, not just for the Americas, but also global, Donkey Workers Welfare, and all the International Coalition of Working Equids. So one of the key things is, I guess, is the advocacy area, is to raise awareness, to talk with different stakeholders, include the government, the contribution, to do assessment of the social, economic, environmental contribution of working equids. So by providing that information, we can also have more tools to talk with the governments. The other one is the regulation and the laws.
Yes.
As we know, one of the latest chapters that was produced by the OIE is the 7.12, was produced in 2017. So the challenges that was mentioned once by João, by the OIE focal points of animal welfare in Brazil, that one of the key challenges for them was the lack of regulation or the poor regulation about this. So there could be a different combination. Now, of course, the other one is the curriculum, not just about the vets, but also different service providers that most of the time they don't have within their curricula equine topics, no? Or animal welfare equine topics. So there's like 2, 3, there are different ways, of course, to raise awareness. Also, the governments and the authorities and stakeholders could include within their agenda the animal welfare, which we know, generally speaking, animal welfare is not a priority for many governments in the world.
Thank you, Eduardo.
For the informations, yes, in Nepal we do not have any welfare act. In 2017, we have, in collaboration with the government, made the working animal guideline, but it came as a policy, not as an act and regulation. Because of that, it is very, we are struggling to implement it. And we do have 3 universities in Nepal which provide the technical and vet studies, but this curriculum of this university does not have a equine welfare or equine management. The curriculum of the veterinary study or animal science study more focus on the production of the livelihood or the treatment of the small or large animal, but large animals, the cows and other animals are listed, but not in the equine. So we are advocating with the universities, government, especially with the university, to include the equine welfare or management study in the curriculum of the vet. Let's see. And in terms of, why the equine are low status? Because there are very, very less organizations working in the equine. Even the equine population is very, very high in Nepal. In the mountain regions, the veterans are not working, so nobody know that the number of equines. We only 2 organizations in Nepal who works for the equines. Otherwise, there is no any other organization working for the equine. Because of that, people have less sensitized on the equine welfare.
Thanks, Hari. Tomás, there is, but just give me, I'm going to you right now. Tomás, there is a series of technical questions about the different studies, but just taking what Hari mentioned about the status of the equids, there's a question from Zelia saying, Dr. Boja said horses are used for rituals, not just for work. Do donkeys and mules participate on this? I was wondering if from an owner's perspective, horses are seen as more noble animals, or all equids have the same value in Ethiopia. And Boja, if you want to add something to what we just said, please answer the question first, and then feel free to add.
Okay, yeah, I can add later, and let me focus on the questions. On her questions, yes, horses are noble. Mules are participating in the mourning when people die, so the mules participate in the mourning process. But because they use these animals to express their happiness, pleasure, and also use them during bad times. In both of these, they prioritize horses to do that, but donkeys are not involved in the in such social schemes. Donkeys are not in either, to demonstrate, to show pleasure or bad times. So just to confirm that. So if I go back to the previous questions, which Eduardo and my friend from Nepal is raising, do you give me a chance to add?
Yeah, yes, of course, Boja, go for it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think the question of whether the government gives priority to these animals or not. In my case, as I presented in the very highland areas in the Afro-Alpine climate, the inhabitants is over 3,200 meters above sea level. Let alone for equines, there is no healthcare services for almost all animals, even for people, because it is too high and these people are marginalized in the highland. There are no infrastructure, and there are also no as such professionals happy to go and work there, and the facilities are not there, so they are really abandoned. And if you see the horses that are used in ecotourism, most of them are lame, most of them are very full of sores because of the terrestrial nature. So that's really lacking. But in general, with what Eduardo said, all the concerns in the advocacy side, what we are doing, the main question, I think the central question is, most of the charities, the institutions advocating for equine charities, need to focus on developing evidence, on establishing evidence. The research that are done are anecdotal, and most of them are not policy influencing. For example, when Eduardo mentioned about the socio-economic environmental contributions of these animals in the national accounts of countries like Ethiopia, where most of the rural transport system and agriculture is dependent on, what is the contribution of these animals? That is not really done on national scale, and forcing the national government to consider the inclusion of these animals in the national development program. As of last year, with the help of the donkey sanctuary, we started working what is called the national equine strategy, because we need to go back to understand with the policymakers, are these animals useful? Are they like animals of the past? Can they be animals of the future? if they are animals of the future, in foreseeable future, then how can they be included in the national development program? We know there are rural areas which cannot survive without the role of these animals. So we are working with various stakeholders to bring on board how these animals can be used, can be accounted for, can be recognized in the various aspects of national development program. So evidence is the most important tool that we need to invest on with academia, research, development, policymakers. Thank you.
Thanks, Boja. I think this is a really important point, and we are all aware. You know, just looking at the other questions we have here, just if we pay attention, just because Tomás was presenting scientific data, and maybe because of the audience we have today, the number of questions focus on those data and the soil impacts and difference between different species. So I think we need to have those data for sure, so we can compare and we can have reliable information, so we can advocate for working equids. It is completely undoubtable that working equids, they play a key role, but of course there's the cost for that, and we need to make sure that animal welfare is at the center of all these activities that these animals provide. So going back to Tomás, there are two questions that I'll take to you, Tomás. The first one is from Mariano from Mexico, talking about conservation of biodiversity. Mariano is saying that in some areas of Mexico, people say that local crops, especially in a local type of maize adapted to arid climates, grows better when land is worked with donkeys, meaning with animal traction. That's one comment. And the other one from Debbie, that's is in Brazil now. Has there been any investigations done so far in relation to working equids and how they contribute to the reduction in carbon emissions or their impact in the environment, or is this an area that needs to be researched still? So first thing, the impact on traditional crops and carbon emissions.
Okay, João, let me ask you a question. May I take some time to answer, to make an additional comments on the previous?
Of course. Yep, we're still on time. Yep.
So straightforward to the two questions. The first one is a very, very, very interesting evidence, talking about evidences, which I would very much like to follow up. It's very interesting that people say that. The first thing would be to understand why they do such statements. And the basic idea I can provide you now is that when you use animal traction, and sticking this to the earlier question about speed, what you do is to work slowly on disturbing soils. As you work fast, you disaggregate more the soil, you break down the structure, and you have consequences on the porosity, on the compaction, on the water status of soils. And you should link these elements to the dynamics of organic matter in soils. The dynamics is driven by microbiota and generally by biodiversity. In that sense, it's not surprising for me that if you compare animal traction with motorized traction, you may find differences in biodiversity and in carbon emissions, because carbon emissions are strictly related with the organic matter dynamics, which are strictly related with the physical environment you have in soils. The question is there any scientific evidence of these two? No. And that's why I asked you, João, to add some more comments following these questions and the previous comments from the other speakers. Firstly, I want to thank very much people that is joining this session, because they call the attention for the our part of the world where animals are becoming so rare that we we care too much about their importance and trying to give them back to the environment and to the social systems. In areas like Nepal, Ethiopia, Mexico, where animals are present, they provide us a very important and actual opportunity to study things that we cannot anymore study in our countries. And I think this a big opportunity because we failed in the agronomic field to study animal traction on impacts on soils and advantages for soil, for the soil health and quality. Because when the agronomic and soil science research rised up, also it was coupled with the rising gap of motorized agriculture. And when agronomists wanted to were studying the new systems, were lefting behind the old systems. So we lack a lot of scientific knowledge because we lost the opportunity to study. Nowadays, we have few animals to study in those countries where the animals animal population is growing down, is lowering. In other countries like you described, we have that opportunity. And the evidences, as said before, are very much needed to provide the appropriate ground for people to believe and to accept that animals are also for the future. And one last comment, if you allow me, is regards what I said in the last challenges of my presentation. There is a lack of training and in what regards working with animals. We have a very large experience here with João in the APTRAN, the Portuguese Association of Animal Traction, with summer courses, I would say. I'm not sure if it is the appropriate expression. Most of our effort was to, João effort, was to put people in contact with animals, to work directly with the animals. This is a very important step because we are far apart from dealing directly with animals, as well as dealing directly with soil. Coming back to those linkages that we lost along the last 100 years is a very important step to raise awarenesses, to drive people to the importance of animals as well as other resources that we have and we deal with very wrongly. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Tomás. Thank you. I'll just correct that it's our efforts and not only mine. But apart from that, I agree with what you said. A quick question to Eduardo here in terms of the longevity of the animals. What is the typical longevity of mountain mules? In general, is their lifespan shorter? Do they experience more challenges to health compared with mules living on flat ground?
The honest question is, we don't know yet. No, in terms of the whole region, those if there's any difference between, for example, urban. One of the worst situations that we have seen about animal welfare is in urban conditions in Mexico City or surrounding Mexico City. So that's one of the things that we, not just the lifespan of a donkey or of a mule, but also the welfare conditions, if they are different, or what are the things that jeopardize the welfare of those animals in comparison with other areas. But my honest question is that we need to investigate in the different mountain chains, mountain areas of the Americas and globally. You know?
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Eduardo. I think we lost Harry. I hope you can join us until 4 p.m. this session. Otherwise, I just want to say publicly thank you so much for Harry for joining us and share his case study about Nepal. Going back to the questions for Boja, what helps human NGOs to acknowledge working equids as productive livestock that can contribute to development? Another 1 million question for you, Boja.
No worries, Eduardo. Joao, we are sharing. It's a pleasure to share what we know to the other world as to how we could contribute to human livelihoods across the globe. I think it all depends on which community that NGO is working. Strategic goals of the NGOs are different, so it all depends on that. But in general, what helps them to prefer is one, affordability. These are affordable animals. The other is accessibility, where they are, easy to use and management, and they also provide eco-friendly support. In line with this, I think if you can see, if I can say, livelihood. NGOs that are focusing on supporting livelihoods of communities, mainly on agriculture, in rural areas, in the peri-urban areas, they prefer to support livelihoods, community empowerment, and also in water access. Those people, because in the water distribution and the water access value chain, these animals are so important in rural areas. The other one is in the market networking from, like for example, which Eduardo was showing in the coffee production, plantation, and the coffee value chain. Donkeys, horses, and mules are important in transporting. And also in forest management, in the forest management industry, forest management sector. These, and also in women empowerment programs in some areas where children and women are supposed to do. These animals are supporting them. So in the women empowerment program, these animals are useful. So it depends on which NGOs, in the various. All this spectrum and beyond that, these animals are useful to the to NGOs, to be preferred by the NGOs.
Thanks, Boja. We have 4 questions here. One of them is directly related with this answer because it's pretty much the same question, but for Latin America. So Eduardo, I'll ask this question to you. And then there are 3 more technical questions to Tomás. So I'll read those questions and we'll try to summarize that. For Eduardo, what is the level of cooperation and understanding of development and humanitarian agencies in the mountain regions of Latin America regarding the issue around working equids welfare and its impact on human livelihood? So it's pretty much the same question. Let's make a bridge from Ethiopia, from the highlands of Ethiopia to the highlands of Latin America, and see if it's the same reality or not.
Yeah, well, I think not just about the mountain area, Joe, and everyone, but also in terms of other areas is increasing. Now with this concept of just one welfare that is, is everywhere. My experience with other animal welfare NGOs, not just in the area of working equids, is that this level of cooperation with humanitarian development organization is increasing. We still need to collaborate more. We still need to talk better between us, have a better communication with the humanitarian development. Well, one of the examples that we have seen, that we have experienced in Mexico with the Dunk Sanctuary is the collaboration with a humanitarian development NGO, which is the Heifer International. So with Heifer International, they realized that for them, with some of one conversation, and when they have the chance to listen about animal welfare, they realized that for the production of mezcal, a key element was, or it is, the working equids, because they are part of the production chain. So we still need to improve that. This collaboration with these NGOs is key, is fundamental. With environmental, with different, with the one welfare concept, NGOs and different stakeholders is fundamental. but the level of collaboration, to my knowledge, and here we can World Host Welfare could provide also some elements about this. But for example, I know that in Brook in Nicaragua, they have a better communication with this area of humanitarian development. But still, I think still we need to improve the way we collaborate and at least start communicating, talking about this issue between us. No?
Thanks, Eduardo. Yeah, these new concepts, one health, one welfare, I think they need to be part of the way we work. That's the only way. And I think as part of one health, a healthy soil is also part of this equation, right, Tomás? So Roger Cutting from Donkey Sanctuary, there are two quick questions for you. So the first one says, as the compaction was around 8 centimeters, could deeper plowing break any plow pan? That's the first one. And the second one is whether the reduction in infiltration has increased surface runoff and soil erosion in these areas.
Okay, thank you very much. Firstly, the 8 centimeters was the sampled, I would say, or computed, better said, electrical resistivity outcome from the tomography. And for that soil depth, soil thickness, we could compare both treatments, motorized and animal traction operation. But I must tell you that we had also other levels of computation, and the next one was about 25, I guess, centimeters. At that level, the only disturbance was driven by or caused by motorized traction. No such depth was attained by the implements pulled by animals. So there is a big difference between both conditions. At the surface level, yes, you have compaction in both cases, much lower with animals, but you still have compaction below 20 centimeters in the case of the motorized pulled implements. Your question was, can we solve that with a deeper plowing? Yes. It is not required in the case of the animal traction because it is not further down than 10 centimeters depth. Okay, so it's not a problem. And again, I'll answer you as I answered before. If you double the number of animals, you have the double of power and you can perform heavier operations. In the second case, no, there was no there was no measurement of runoff and erosion in this case. But if we had it, I'm sure the differences would not be so much. Sorry, the difference would be huge between animal traction treated surface and motorized treated surface. Why? Because as differently to the soil treated in Quinta de Santa Apolónia, whose results I showed you for runoff and erosion, in these soils from Val Frades, the soil structure was much weaker. So the impact would be higher in this case in terms of runoff and erosion, comparing motorized with animal traction. I would say that in this case, animal traction would have a higher positive or less negative impact in erosion and runoff than the motorized one. Okay? I guess I answered the questions. I'm not sure. What's your guess, João?
I think so, Tomás. Yep. And I think the question here is, it's not how much you can plow, it's literally how much you need to plow, right?
Yeah.
In terms of depth. Maybe we don't need to plow 25 or 30 centimeters deep.
That's it.
We had these conversations before.
Yeah.
And there is a last question for you here, Tomás, about comparison of different species. I know you didn't have the chance to talk, although we did that in one of the trials. So the question is from Marta Ferrari that says, I was wondering if the animal used for traction, donkey versus a large mule or a horse, would make a difference on the impact on soil.
That's a very good question. We try to compare that with comparing donkeys and cows working in Waldfranche, one of the experiments. The results are not very clear. There is not a difference, an experimental difference that we can for sure say that it is a difference, but it is quite clear for us in the theoretical point of view that the heavier animals have a heavier impact. I would say that the challenging issue is how do we couple that assumption, that mental build up with velocity, with speed, because heavier animals are stronger animals and theoretically they work faster. So it is not clear how both couple in terms of disturbance, soil disturbance when performing plowing operations. It's not clear, but yes, there would be heavier impact with heavier animals.
Although, Tomás, if you allow me, the species is an important aspect, because although a 900 kilos draft horse, you cannot compare it in terms of speed with a 900 kilos bull. Yeah, local people tend to say that bulls work slower and they can plow until the end of the world. That's exactly what they used to say, because of the low rhythm and the high resistance, they work on a lower speed, but they can work for longer hours. So even weight is of course something we may compare, but the species is also important.
Yeah. That's right. May you allow me also 1 minute to a comment coupling, taking advantage of the previous comments. I think about the last intervention of Eduardo, that coupling humanitarian with welfare, animal health care in the same one welfare and one health. I guess it's the slogan. It's the key issue. When I talk to you about training people with animals, it's the issue. If you don't have the experience of getting together people with animals and dealing together, you don't have a really practical perception of what is animal welfare. If you keep a spectator, I would say an audience seeing animals performing in the fields, you are exactly in the same condition as when you go to the circus seeing lions or elephants performing before you. And this is not what we want. We do not want animals to be performers for us, audience. We want to be part of the show together with the animals. Okay? And coupling these two has also things to relate with soil quality, as João stressed, and with the very many issues, environmental issues that are accounted for in the Sustainable Development Goals, as carbon emissions, as biodiversity, as all the threats that are menacing our soil, our resources. Thank you, João, for your patience.
Thank you, Tomás. I think this is one of the take-home messages today, right? The importance of working equids, but also their responsible use, the importance they have for these local communities, and how important it is to look after them with respect, keeping their dignity, their physical and emotional limits, and respecting those physical and emotional limits. And I think this is a perfect way to finish this webinar. I'll just ask Sask and Faith to join us with the camera if they don't mind, and Harry as well. There we are. On my personal name, and I believe on behalf of all the panelists in this webinar, I thank you. I really thank you all, to the attendees that spent these last 2 hours with us. I'll make sure that these videos are going to be available. We'll make sure that this information will be available for you to share in the future. I think some of these messages were really, really important. Special thanks to Harry, to Eduardo, to Tomás, to Boja. It was really, really nice to have you here. For me personally, it was my Christmas gift to have you here on this. It's nearly there, so thank you all. What is going to happen is, as soon as we finish this conference, and it's just a Zoom default, the conference will end. So I'm just going to use this opportunity to thank you all. Thank you, Sask, on behalf and the FECTU. Thank you, Faith, and thank you, Sanctuary. Liam is not here with us. Thank you as well for the World Host Welfare to help us to prepare this event. And on behalf of the Equid Power Network, I hope it will be the first of many, celebrating mountains and celebrating International Mountain Day and many other important days. Thank you, and have a good day, all of you. Bye-bye.